Storygoers, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Cartridge, the video game storytelling podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Eric Penrod.
And I will be your other co-host, Ryan Bauer.
Ryan, January's gone. I don't even know what happened to it.
I know, it was crazy. The first month of 2021 already gone. I don't know if I would say it's been better. It's been interesting though.
It's been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
At least for me personally, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
How are you, and what have you been playing?
I'm doing well. I've been playing still a bunch of Oxygen Not Included. I finally have like a stable base.
Nice.
I'm on every day is called a cycle. I'm on cycle like 200 and something.
Wow.
So we've been going strong for 200 cycles. Just before we hopped on this, I was like redoing my power grid because I'm having some power issues, but that's okay. And I've also been, I don't know if you saw, but the PlayStation Game of the Month was Tomb Raider, the third Tomb Raider game. And I was kind of missing like a game to sit on my couch and play. I downloaded Tomb Raider, I booted up, and I played probably about 5 hours of it, and I was like, this is just kind of like a bad Uncharted that I want to play Uncharted. So it's a fine game. If you enjoy those types of games, go for it. But just like the mechanics was kind of meh. The story was kind of, and I missed the second game, so I'm sure that's a part of it too. But long story short, I've been replaying all the Uncharted games with my partner, so we've been kind of taking turns playing through. We skipped the first one because we just did the episode on it, so we used that to fill in the gaps, and we jumped into Uncharted 2, which is a really wonderful game, and now we're on Uncharted 3, which is a game I think that it was one of my least enjoyed when I played it, and now I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying kind of the dynamics. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I'm really enjoying it, so that's been really fun, is to play through those games again. So yeah, I've been playing Oxygen Not Included and Uncharted, and then a little bit of Raft with you and our friend Dave.
Yes, our good friend Dave, who was on our Assassin's Creed episode. We're playing some Raft, and might I say, our Raft is looking real nice.
It's looking very
nice.
good.
It's like a mobile fortress at this point.
Yeah.
I just patrol it. You guys basically do like all the radio stuff, and you're like kind of like doing all the smart guy stuff, and I just have my spear and was running around the raft in circles waiting for that shark, just to get that shark. I want that. I mean, it's funny, as the vegetarian, I'm looking to actively kill this shark to mount a second shark head on our wall, like a sadist.
It's gotta be symmetrical.
Yeah. I just really want that symmetry in our boat. I think it's what we need. Yeah. Out of curiosity, not to hang up on it, I'm surprised that you feel like Uncharted 3 was like your least of the favorite-y. You didn't enjoy it as much as you thought. I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I think it was just like it was the game I remember least. Like playing through it now, I don't remember anything that happened in that game. And maybe it was because after Uncharted 2, I enjoyed Uncharted 2 so much. And going back and playing it, it still holds up really well. But now going to 3, there's parts of 3 like I really like more. I enjoy more than 2. So it's been really interesting to go back because it's been so long since I've played those games. I think Uncharted 2 came out in like 2009. So it's been a long time. So it's been really nice to go back. But yeah, that's the game that I just like I didn't remember at all. I don't know if it's just like the setting didn't draw me in as much, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the characterization, especially like we'll talk about actually in this episode is the characterization between Nate and Sully that they kind of really heavily focus on in that game.
Yeah, it's really. It's very interesting. That's what I liked most about that was the building of Sully and Nate's relationship. I think I kind of feel like in number 2, Elena and
Chloe.
Chloe.
Yeah.
Chloe's relationship is kind of expounded upon, and like what Nate really wanted to do with himself. So that's what I was seeing from that one, at least. But 3, I really liked because I just loved seeing more of that history between Nate and Sully. So interesting to me because like you already know there's so much there. So it's like the idea of unpacking it. It's like let's do it. Let's unpack it. Like, so cool. But yeah, very cool. It's awesome you're going back to those games. They're so good.
They're so good. They're so good. They're still just like this really fun roller coaster ride. There's part of me that like. Back when I played it the first time, and this is gonna be a long tangent, so just buckle in, everyone. Back when I played it the first time, I liked like the cool adventure stuff, and the shooting was fun. And now I'm like kind of like I just want to be all done with the shooting, get back to like exploring these areas and talking to Sully. Like I'm just kind of all done with the fighting. I like there's a part of me that kind of hopes if they bring it back, they kind of pull back a bunch on that. I don't think they will because it feels pretty core to their games. But I think that would be really cool just to make it where there's some kind of combat. But like the melee combat I enjoy, but the shooting, man, I just it's just fine.
I wasn't expecting you to use the word fun.
Yeah. It's just fine.
It's fine. That'd be cool if Uncharted became like this like kind of like walking simulator where it's just Nate
Yeah.
slowly doing jokes and being sarcastic to each other back and forth for like a couple hours, and I'd be cool with it personally.
Yeah,
I mean,
solving riddles. And honestly, I was thinking about it. They kind of, depending on what they do, if they go the route I think they're going to go, they have a route where maybe they could do that, where
Yeah,
it doesn't
they
have
really
to be
do.
like this violent shooter. Not that I think there's anything wrong with violent shooters. They're very fun games, and they do not cause any other violence in other humans. I feel very strongly about that. But yeah, I think it could still be a really incredible wild ride with the climbing and the cinematic moments. Just the gunplay, I'm not enjoying too much. But
Yeah. It is a little wonky. I remember it feeling a little. I mean, I say that as someone who, with you, played Uncharted 2's online multiplayer quite often, and I wasn't good at it, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, that was very fun. Yeah, and I don't know if it's like the mechanics are okay, but it just I don't know. I think again it's that cognitive dissonance between Nate, this plucky, funny, wonderful guy, and his group of friends just murdering hundreds of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of dead bodies. A lot of dead bodies.
But
one of those people definitely had a kid.
Oh, for
Just
sure.
saying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and also in Uncharted 3, every NPC is a bald English dude, which is really interesting. Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't know why that is, but yeah, everyone's a bald English dude. It's fine.
I mean, their time is coming, you know?
Yes.
I say that as we talked about earlier yesterday, how we had like a few downloads in Great Britain.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Storygoers in Britain, or you know, anyone in the Great Britain area or anything like that. I apologize for that joke. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so cool. I'm glad you're replaying those games. I'm very interested to hear how you feel about the end of Uncharted 3. If you feel like you got more out of it this time than the first time or whatever. And very cool. Keep us in the loop with that.
We'll do. But how are you? What have you been playing, Eric?
I'm good. It's a rough week at work. I'm trying to get things. So I keep being told at my job that it's going to take about a year to get used to anything, so that sucks. but I'm trying to just keep a level head and remember that I don't think I'll be fired for anything. Like, I mean, as long as it's not too serious, if I make mistakes, then it's like, they'll forgive and forget, which is great. But as for what I'm playing, I have been playing. It's been kind of a weird week. I've been playing a lot of Hades. I recently finished Miles Morales, like I said a few episodes ago. Which is great. I loved it. I haven't had a need to want to go back. I almost thought about playing the original Spider-Man, 2019 Spider-Man again, but I just haven't had that desire to like I thought I did. So I've been playing kind of just more easygoing, pick up, put down games like Hades. I'm on Heat 32.
Oh my goodness!
I've made it to Hades, and it's impossible. I don't know how people do it. Every time I get to Hades, I'm at no extra lives, no other. What are they called? Jeez,
Death Defiance.
Death Defiance, yeah. Because freaking Theseus and the Minotaur keep destroying me. Yeah. They destroy me. I am doing great until I get to that point, and they absolutely just wreck me. And then I have no Death Defiances. I don't get any more in the last area of Hades, and it's just a mess. So I am trying my best. Spear is still the best weapon in Hades. Don't at me. I know I'm right. And then my girlfriend and I have actually started getting back into playing the best video game console of all time. That's right, Storygoers. The Sega Genesis. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. If you got really excited for that, I apologize. No, we've been playing our N64 again, which is
it's exciting.
It is a blast from the past. It has been so much fun. I surprised her and I bought Pokemon Snap, which is like one of her favorite games, on the N64, and I have been thoroughly surprised by how much she remembered it, like in that game compared to me. Like it blew my mind, all the small things in that game that you could do to get different pictures and to set things off that she remembered, and I remember playing that game all the time and knowing all the secrets, or thinking that I did at least, and she retained way more than me, and I'm always like thoroughly impressed. I keep joking that this has brought us back from the brink. I said that to my mom, and she was legitimately worried. Maybe not, I don't know. But we've been playing a lot of Pokemon Snap. I threw on Majora's Mask again just to kind of play it and just to throw myself back in that world for a little bit. And it's so funny that like I I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like if I went back and played a game that scared me when I was a young child, I don't think it would scare me anymore. But when I put in Majora's Mask, I turned it on and the title screen came on, that like 10-year-old me fear like was just kind of in the pit of my stomach. Like I just kind of felt it again, and it was just, and especially because like it was in the old graphics again. It was how I remember it looking, and it's just, it really made me feel uncomfortable, but in a, you know, not in a bad way, I guess. It sounds like an oxymoron. I was uncomfortable, but not in a bad way. I don't know how that works.
It's a good uncomfortable.
But it just felt very strange to be back in that game again, and I'm actually planning on going back and playing it very soon. I would like to beat that game again. Ironically, in about an hour or so, I'm going to get a tattoo consultation, and the tattoos will be Majora's Mask related, which is really cool.
That's really cool.
So I also decided that's probably my favorite game of all time is Majora's Mask. I think. But yeah, so that is how we are doing, Storygoers. We hope you are doing well as always. We have had a lot of traction throughout the world, which is really cool. Norway, Denmark, Czech Republic, always Canada. Thank you, Canada, our brothers in arms. Great Britain, even Ireland and Australia, which is like,
it's so cool.
Blows my mind. Yeah, it's so cool to think people actually listen to us and enjoy it. It's the enjoying part that surprises me the most. It's awesome. So thank you so much, Storygoers. We really appreciate it. And as always, we hope you enjoyed our January stories. We really put a lot of effort into them. The Baldur's Gate episode was amazing. Jesse killed it, and I keep telling Ryan I feel self-conscious and I feel like I need to do better. But let us know what your favorite is of January, or in general. If you have one that you really liked, let us know, because we would love to talk about it. And again, email us, comment on all our posts on social media, or not all, but comment on a post on social media, or DM us. Our email is talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All the E's are 3's. Let us know what your favorite game is. Give us your thoughts, feelings, and perspectives on whatever games really like connected with you, and get those out there, because we love to read them and we love to talk about them. Even if you don't agree with how we felt in the episode, that's even better. We would love to get different perspectives to see if maybe ours would change too. Maybe something that we thought was really cool isn't as cool as we thought, or vice versa. Maybe something that we thought wasn't like important was way more important than we realized. That's the kind of stuff that we really love to just sink our teeth into. Weird. I don't like see all these things and comparisons I'm making, all these similes and stuff. They're not jiving with me today, Ryan. I'm not doing too hard.
Yeah. It's all right.
But today in our DLC episode number 4, we are talking about relationships. It is February, the month of love. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
It's the month of commercialized love.
Yes, of course. Capitalistic love.
Capitalistic love.
Show your love by buying things.
Yeah. St. Valentine got together and thought, you know, it'd be really cool if we just made people buy stuff for each other on this one day and showed affection that they should be showing all year round, but just really on this one day.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's in a really healthy way attach the amount you care for someone to the amount you spend on that person. I think that's a really healthy and really good way to validate your relationship through dollars.
Everyone knows that we all have ample amounts of money to spend on one another to show our love. Mm-hmm. There's no one out there that doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying, because no, I'm really poor. I bought Pokemon Snap. I feel like that's a really good way to show someone that I care.
Yeah, that is.
Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, so that's pretty meaningful.
It was really pricey. It was like more. I mean, it wasn't for an N64 game. It was pricey. It was like $25-ish, which is way more than I thought it was gonna be. But it was fun. I'm happy I bought it. I'm buying Snowboard Kids next. And if anyone knows what Snowboard Kids is for the N64, you're really cool, and you probably rented that game in your local grocery store as a kid like me, and we could probably be best friends. So just saying. But today's episode, we are focusing on relationships, not only just your stereotypical
heteronormative
romantic relationship. Yeah. We are also focusing on parental relationships, or just any kind of relationships in general that, you know, shows care and love in different ways. As I think that love, like most things, is kind of on the spectrum of you know, how people give and receive it, what love languages they are, because I just learned about love languages, which I think are very interesting and eye-opening. So yes, that's what this episode is all about. So if you have a game that you think is a really good representation of love and how that looks to you and represents you, or any of the games that we talked about, please let us know because we would love to talk about that in a future episode. So, without further ado, Ryan, would you like to start us on this trip of love?
Yeah, I would love.
That sounds wrong with the first game you're going to talk about.
It's okay. It's okay. I would love to. For both our first games, big spoiler alerts. We're not going to dive too deep into these things because I don't want to spoil them. I don't think either of us do. But just keep in mind that even talking about it in general terms could possibly spoil something. So keep that in mind and maybe skip ahead 5. I don't know how long we'll ramble on this, but yeah, just keep that in mind that both my first game and Eric's first game are going to be a little spoilery. So we're not going to get into spoilers, but just talking about them is inherently spoilery. So my first game is Red Dead Redemption 2 between Arthur Morgan and John Marston. And this is a really interesting relationship, and over the course of the game, you see it shift and change. But they're effectively brothers, both of them raised by Dutch, who is kind of one of the main characters in this game and was a really big part of the first game as well. The reason their relationship is so interesting and the reason that I was so interested by it is we as players, if you're playing Red Dead 2, have already been John Marston, and I love John Marston. He's such a cool and interesting character. By comparison, Arthur Morgan is not really likable at the beginning of the game. He's kind of this thug who you don't really care for, and you're just not really interested in him. He's kind of this... He's not as interesting a character. Over the course of the game, he gets much more interesting and well-developed, and effectively becomes this... It's one of the best arcs in any video game I've ever played as far as a character's progression is Arthur Morgan's. And effectively, John Marston is Arthur Morgan's redemption. He is... Which makes playing as John Marston so much more meaningful because they care so much about each other, and Arthur specifically cares so much about John and his future that he's willing to do lots of things to make sure he can be successful in this way that then makes John Marston's story so much more meaningful. I think that's all I can probably get into. But it's a really great relationship. It's two kind of gruff dudes who really care for each other, and they don't do a great job of communicating it that I remember, but you can tell that it's there. Again, their love languages through acts of kindness or acts of support. They do things for each other. That is how they communicate that they care about each other. But yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic, and it changes a lot over the course of the game.
I have yet to play Red Dead Redemption 2. I've played 1, and we did Undead Nightmares on the show. It's one of my favorite episodes. So I remember liking John Marston as well a lot. He's a very interesting person who, like, he's one of those characters that you can strangely relate with, I guess, in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but he's very interesting. And so I have not played Red Dead Redemption 2 yet, but I like the idea of Arthur Morgan being this person who changes based on possibly this relationship with John Marston, I'm guessing. Do you feel like you mentioned that he's kind of this awful person at the beginning of the game and that kind of changes? Do you think that's intentional through this relationship or just Yeah, completely intentional. I mean, one of the things about Arthur Morgan is that he is loyal to a fault, and the game and the story does this incredible job of kind of toying with that idea. But yeah, I think they set up Arthur as this type of character, and it can be because of that loyalty. That loyalty over the course of the game shifts, and it's that shift that eventually leads to Arthur's redemption. And one of the things in Red Dead that I didn't particularly participate in a bunch, but there's this good guy and bad guy system. I again, like we've talked about, did the good guy outcome, so my ending was different. But yeah. He certainly changes. I think that is the game. Red Dead Redemption 2 is about Arthur Morgan and his change in the same way that Red Dead Redemption 1 is about John's. Although I think John Marston, like you said, is a really cool, interesting, and relatable character. He doesn't change a ton over the course of his game. His situation changes, his relationships change slightly, but he's kind of the same John Marston he is from start to finish, which again is still a really likable and interesting character. Where Arthur Morgan changes so completely because of the circumstances in a way that I've never seen before, in a way that was so impactful to me at the time that nothing has kind of came close to that kind of arc shift, where
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it, but it's just really good storytelling. You build these really incredible relationships throughout this game, and Arthur and John's is just one, but you have this whole camp of these fully formed, interesting characters with histories and backstories who you go on missions with and learn more about them, and you care for them, and then things happen that are so impactful and interesting. We kind of talked about this a little bit when I was talking about Valhalla, where, you know, a character died and the fact that everyone reacted felt so meaningful in that game. Everything that happens to these characters feels that way in this game. So Valhalla, it happened that one time and it was so impactful. Every single character, you feel that way in this game. If something happens to them or you're trying to... Arthur is just this character who loves all of these people so much and wants to do everything he can for them, but he's just pulled in so many ways, and he's trapped in a world that his way of life is no longer acceptable.
That makes sense. It's very interesting. And actually, it's so funny. I say this as a joke, or I say this like as a funny thing to say, but it also makes sense to me more now. I read the story forever ago when Red Dead 2 came out that there's some guy who was dumped by his girlfriend because he may or may not have yelled out a name of a character from Red Dead 2, a female character, during an intimate moment with his girlfriend. I guess that really upset her. So, I mean, going back to what you're saying, the fact that it sounds like this game really does a good job of building relationships and making you care about them. So that's kind of what made me think about this story. But I like that these relationships are meaningful, and they're able to craft and weave that dynamic into these relationships for you, because then when something happens, it's so much more impactful for you as a person. It's very, very cool. I need to play this game.
It's a big undertaking, but it's a really incredible game. I love it so much. I played it at the beginning of 2020, both this and God of War I played back to back. I still go back and forth on which one I like the most, because I love them both so much. But Eric, you want to tell us about your first relationship in games?
So the game I picked first, and again, no spoilers. This is a newer game, so I don't want to actually say something that spoils everything. That game is The Last of Us Part 2, and why I bring that up is because before this game even came out, everyone knew that Ellie was a lesbian. Through the DLC Left Behind for the first game, Ellie's sexuality is kind of explored more in this game through relationships with people and how some people see her compared to other people, but also in this very intimate relationship that she has with someone in this game. And if you've seen the trailers, you probably already know. If you play the game, obviously you already know. But what I like so much about it is that in this game, you see this kind of normalized instance of this relationship and just how normal it is. And I'm not saying that a lesbian relationship isn't normal. That's not what I'm saying. But what I feel like, from my perspective at least, I never see it in media. I never see. It's always kind of more dramatized, I feel like, because it's like, it's entertainment. It is what it is. I feel like the best example I can think of is that show The Fosters. I don't know if you know what show this is, Ryan. I had to watch it for college once. But it's this family, and these two women foster a lot of children, and there's a lot of drama involved and things like that. The point is, though, is that there's a point in this game where you see Ellie and a partner that she has, and it's just this normal life that they live. It's just so cool to see it just normal, and it's like any other relationship you would see on any other kind of media. And I just love how you see the love they have for each other, and just how it just flows. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm doing a really poor job explaining this. I think if people play this game or they know what I'm talking about, they know it. I'm just trying not to spoil it, so I'm just rambling at this point. But you kind of know. Anyway, that's my example. So Ryan, what is your second game that you'd like to talk about?
My second game, I believe, is also your second game, but we picked two different relationships in this game. My second game is Uncharted. I chose Nate and Sully. I think their relationship is so interesting, and kind of what we just talked about. And what have we been playing? I'm playing Uncharted 3 now. We're really kind of seeing this relationship played out. This game, and again, this company, that Naughty Dog, does such a great job kind of exploring characters and helping them feel like fully formed characters. And Nate and Sully are the same way. Nate is this... We have a really clear idea of who Nate is from playing these games. This kind of reckless, very lucky, caring individual who is just kind of doing what he does best, which is trying to find treasure and go on adventures in the world. And then you have Sully, who kind of is his father surrogate for reasons that are explored in the game, who kind of finds him when Nate is kind of wandering and lost, and kind of sets him on a path to where he becomes who he is today because of Sully. And ultimately, Sully does this because he wants what's best for him, and he wants him to have a better life than he did, and he wants to kind of foster those skills that he knows Nate has and has developed, and set him in a direction. And we see over the course of the games this relationship change over time and shift and change. So Sully is kind of all Nate has, especially for the first game. There are these other relationships out there, but as more people come into Nate's life and kind of fill these gaps, Sully kind of comes in and out. But Sully is always there to help him. He's always, when Nate calls, no matter what, he comes and helps save him and help does what he needs to do. But at the same time, he's kind of pushing him in Uncharted 3 in particular, where, no, I'm not going to spoil it, but effectively he believes Nate is kind of going too far, or he's willing to risk too much for whatever it is he's going after, and he's trying to convince him to, like, let's focus, let's think about what is important and whether this is worth putting everyone at risk. And I really like that progression. And again, it's this relationship of these two male characters that are caring, they care about each other, they still aren't doing a great job of communicating those feelings, they care about each other, and they're doing things for each other, and they're willing to do whatever they need to for each other. I mean, if you look at in our episode, we covered it, Uncharted 1, where Nate believes Sully has died, the reaction to that versus kind of the relationship here feels so different. Nate was certainly upset, but not nearly as upset as you would think he would be after what happens in this game, or the experiences in this game. So I think it's just, again, a really good and a really interesting relationship between these two characters who take care of each other, and it's kind of a father figure to Nate.
I like you said, without spoiling too much or anything of this game, there is this paternal relationship between these two, and you're right. I actually never thought about this, how in Uncharted 1, which we recorded before, Nate he's upset, obviously, but he's not too upset. He's not like crying and like, oh my God, I lost my father. It's very, and I think that's kind of normal in games that with sequels, you don't really know where the direction is at the time and what the focus is. So, but it's so interesting how these two people, they almost have like this. I always tell I do therapy a lot with kids, and I work with parents and how to be better parents and stuff like that. And I always tell parents there's two options you can take. You can be a parent, or you can be a friend to your kid. There's only really one good answer to this when your kid's young and you're trying to be a parent. And that's to be the parent. And I said parent a lot, but the point is that you can't be a friend and be a parent at the same time. The only time you can ever really be a friend to your kid is like after they have grown up and they have moved out and they are living their lives. And that's what I see with Nate and Sully. Nate is grown up. He's this adult that Sully's technically kind of raised, and Sully doesn't really have to be the parent anymore. He can kind of be that friend. He's still like his like quote unquote parent figure, his father figure. But he's more of like his friend role where they can joke around and be funny, and they just trust each other, and that's really cool to me. So
Eric, what is your next relationship?
I took the easy way out. And I picked Nate and Elena for obvious reasons. I like Chloe a lot more, I think, than Elena. I like Elena a lot, don't get me wrong, but I think Chloe's just more fun. Yeah. I would have enjoyed to see that kind of more fleshed out, but I mean, I see that now. After Uncharted 2, I felt that way. I was like, I wish we had seen more things with Chloe and Nate to see where that relationship could have gone. But knowing where it ends up at the end of Uncharted 4 and everything that happens, I'm very happy with Nate and Elena. Don't get me wrong. But with Nate and Elena, it's so interesting because like they always seem that they're on different pages. Their overall goals are kind of the same, but I feel like in their journey they're on different, like their overall morals and kind of perspectives actually are very different from each other. Nate always seems to be willing to risk more than Elena, I would argue, until the point where like they have to question what is Nate's overall goal here in life. Is it to continue to adventure and to put himself at risk, or is it to settle down and to be a family, and start something like that. So I just think that Uncharted, for as much as it is this game where Nate is murdering so many people, it does like every Naughty Dog game. It does a really good job at building relationships and showing kind of this realness in relationships in these very crazy situations. So as Nate is going through and solving agent puzzles and finding this lost treasure and crazy monkey people and stuff, he and Elena are having these kind of very real relationship dynamics and relationship discussions that kind of I feel like all couples have to go through in the course of their relationship. But just it's just funny that these moments are happening to them in these crazy instances, which is what I really like. The overall dynamic, though, it just shows that he cares by the end of spoilers, I'm going to say spoilers, just so I can talk freely, because it's really hard not to give spoilers when you're talking about something. So spoilers for Uncharted 4, don't listen to this, skip ahead. But what I really like is that at the end of the day, Nate and Elena come together. Nate really has to reconcile with what he wants with his future, and so to come together, and Nate really does show her, which is important in every relationship. If you plan on sticking this through, you need to show that you mean what you say, and he really does with Elena, and ends up, living happily ever after, hopefully. We don't know if Uncharted 5 is ever coming out, or if it will be that walking simulator that Ryan wants so desperately between he and...
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that Nate and Ray they are a good representation of the everyday relationship, just in really funny, strange situations. So,
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on them?
Yeah. I mean, again, this is a relationship that I really like, especially now that as I'm replaying these games, you see this dynamic change and shift. And one of the things I like most about them is that Nate and Elena are two completely different individuals. Like, Elena has her own success and her own drives in the world, and Nate does as well. But they care about each other so much, they're willing to compromise those things. Nate's, by the start of Uncharted 4, is, no longer going off and adventuring. And Elena, instead of doing this kind of intense journalism, is writing, like, travel guides. So they're both they're compromised what they wanted in order to have this life together. In Uncharted 4, they explore this relationship. Like, a big part of the Uncharted games is those relationships. So you see that over Uncharted 2, the dynamic between Nate and Chloe, which they care about each other, but they just kind of really like to have fun and go on adventures together. And as soon as Elena is in danger, you see this shift in Nate in how intense he cares for Elena and how worried he is. And you find out that, Elena's the one who dumped Nate, right? And he went off and did his own thing because Elena didn't want to be with him and left him behind. And he's still kind of dealing with that when he sees her in Uncharted 2. And then they go through this really intense experience together that brings them closer together. And then we see this dynamic shift and change.
Ryan, we have covered all of Uncharted. What is your third game that you would like to touch on?
So this is one that didn't come to mind. And I think the reason it didn't come to mind right away is because it isn't something that I had thought about or necessarily represents the relationships I've had, so it didn't jump out at me. But as I thought more about it, it felt so meaningful. So the game Outer Worlds, which is by the folks who made Fallout, has these two characters, Jin-Li and Parvati.
In Storygoers, Ryan's looking this up right now, but also... They made New Vegas just to make sure, just for context.
Yeah, they made the good Fallouts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Parvati. Yeah. Parvati, who is voiced by Ashley Birch, who does an incredible job. She is like your first companion in this world. She is your first friend in this world. When you first arrive on this strange planet and you go through all these adventures, she is your first kind of friend, and she's such an amazing character. She feels so fully formed. She's so like kind and wonderful in this kind of scary, tragic world. And after you kind of build up a relationship with her, she eventually shares with you that she's asexual, which means she isn't sexually attracted to others and she has no desire for that kind of sexual or physical relationship. Which, again, similar to Ellie, just to be able to see... I've never seen an asexual character in media before. And to see this represented was so interesting. And then you get to this point in the game where she eventually... Parvati shares that, like, she's really interested. She really cares about this person. But she's terrified that because she is asexual, this person won't be interested in her. And won't be able to care about her. And won't be able to love her. And it's you helping her through this experience... and helping her kind of court this person because they have similar interests and they have kind of this chemistry together. And again, it's another woman, so it's a same-sex asexual relationship. Which again, just really important that more of these things are portrayed so people who feel this way can feel represented in the world. But so you see this character, and over the course of a couple missions, you help them kind of grow together. And all throughout this, Parvati is kind of communicating her fear that this person, once they get together, this person is going to want something sexual. They're going to want a physical relationship, and that's just not something that she wants or is interested in. And this kind of fear that she's communicating is something that I've just never seen before and never really understood before. But the fact that it's represented in this really interesting character helps you connect and have this compassion. And in the end, they spoilers for this side mission of this game. in the end, if you make certain choices, they do end up together, and they end up kind of, it's this compromise where she's like, we both really cared about each other, and we both really, really want to be together, so we're going to try and work it out, because Jun-Li isn't asexual. She has the sexual attractions, and she has that desire for physical attraction. So you have these two characters who have these very different desires out of a relationship, who are willing to work together to make it work. And in the game, it's represented as a success, and they end up happily ever after. And just to see that relationship change over time and them overcome this challenge that I've never even thought about, that I'm sure some people, have this big fear of and have to go through of, you care about someone, you want to be with somebody, but they want something that you just can't give them, and how you work through that. And in the end, they find a way to work it out, and they end up together. And I think Parvati says at the end, she's like, and she said maybe she wants to give me a shoulder rub, which I think I might be okay with. Like, that's the extent of what she's comfortable with, right? Is to have somebody else touch her shoulders, which is just this dynamic that is so interesting and so wonderfully done. And again, just opened my eyes as a cis-normative heterosexual male to other relationships out there, and how challenging those can be, and how much harder it is to just exist if you're not kind of part of that normative structure. But it's just a really good story. These two, this is just a small piece of a larger story, but this relationship is so interesting and really great.
But I think the viewpoint of being asexual is so foreign to me, because I'm just not, obviously. I don't know anyone that is. So this sounds fantastic as a way to kind of learn what that means for somebody. It sounds like they really did their homework with kind of learning how to incorporate this in their game and to represent it in a very realistic and respectful way. So this makes me want to play this game in terms of like learning this in a sense. I would love to kind of gain that perspective.
But Eric, what's your next relationship in video games?
I'm going to combine two. So then I want to do two games really fast, because they're kind of the same thing in terms of like the way these relationships work, and that's Dead Space and Shadow of the Colossus. And why I'm combining these two games is because I think relationships and the love that these main characters have for their significant others, or the people that they really care about, is the main driving force of the game, right? So in Dead Space, again, spoilers, I'm gonna keep saying it because I'm just terrified someone's gonna feel like they got spoiled. In Dead Space, Isaac Miles is the main character, and he goes off to the USG Ishimura, which is a spaceship in space, obviously, and to save his girlfriend, because she sent him a really weird, creepy message, and he's very not sure what happens. And obviously, all hell breaks loose, and he has to fight through all these monsters to try to save her. And what I love, and then to shadow that, is Shadow of the Colossus, where the Wanderer is going and climbing these giant colossi and killing them to save the woman that he loves, with the help of this demon who wants him to kill these colossi. And so why I'm combining these two games is that we literally see these two people throughout their games. So Isaac will see Nicole walking around the ship and telling him what he needs to do, and then the Wanderer will see his girlfriend on this pedestal at this temple. It's like where you go to every time after you kill a colossi, and when you learn of where to go next, you see here. So they're like these like physical representations of like what you're striving towards helping, and that love that these characters have for these people are the main driver and why they're going through these really challenging and, I mean, at least in Isaac's case, horrific experiences. And just kind of like that mentality how love conquers all is kind of what I feel from these two games. Isaac's main driving force in kind of going through the USG Ishimura, killing all these necromorphs, so there's like morphed grotesque humans or dead humans, to save Nicole, and how the Wanderer is going and killing these giant colossi, which are like, huge. Like they are just massive, and he has to climb on them and stab them in certain parts. It's very meticulous and very hard, and every time he does it, he gets a little bit weaker. It just shows how like love will make these people do crazy things, and how strong that bond is between these characters and their significant others. And I think that's something that everyone can relate to in a sense. There's always that one person that will go a little bit further for, and might do something we never thought we could because their well-being is on the line. My thoughts are like, donating a kidney, or like a bone marrow transplant, or crazy things that you never thought you'd have to do, but like you have to save this person that you care about. And that's what I get a lot from Dead Space and Shadow of the Colossus is how love is this major driving force. It can make you do crazy, amazing things, and it can make you do horrible, horrific things, and how multifaceted the idea of what love is. So, do you get anything from these two games at all, Ryan?
I mean, I think the biggest thing I get from them, and kind of from all of these, is just like how much this idea of relationships and love is such core to who we are as humans, that it's represented in so many different ways in this medium that we love so much, and it takes up so many different forms where, like you said, these characters are doing really crazy things for the one they love, and us as people are like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what you do for someone you care about. We're not like taken aback by, this is nuts, why would this person do this? We accept that this is just something that you do for someone you care about, and that's because of kind of who we are as humans, also like what media and culture tells us about love. But to see it represented in this medium in such a robust way is just always so interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I love how you can relate. Again, it's almost like Nate and Elena in a sense, but in terms of like, you don't see this relationship unfolding and growing. You just know that there is something here with these people that the main character, the main character understands why this is important. You don't, and that's what kind of you're gaining from these experiences. More so in Dead Space than Shadow of the Colossus. You really don't ever find out what the Wanderer and Mono is the girl's name that he's trying to save. You don't really know much about their relationship, but for Isaac and Nicole in Dead Space, you kind of understand that there's more there, and you kind of can learn a little bit through the written diary things that Isaac has in the game, why she's so important, and you learn later on in other games too, more so. But I just love how like there's baggage there, and you know that baggage is why we're going and doing this thing. As crazy as like I would never go into a spaceship and kill monsters for this girl. I don't know. But then again, you're not doing it for yourself. You're Isaac, and you're doing that, and that's the driving force, and that's why it's so cool to me. So, yeah, Ryan, what is the next game you'd like to touch on?
So the game next time I want to touch on is a game we've covered, which is Firewatch, and that relation between like Henry and Delilah, that kind of intimate relationship that is kind of fleeting and temporary. But they share so much about what's going on in each other's lives. They're really intimate in that way. They recognize each other's faults and support each other to try to help each other through those things. And again, it to me at least, and I think we're in agreement there, it never felt like it was a sexual or a relationship beyond that, kind of a really intimate friendship. And it was just so meaningful in that game. And I think again, it's relatable, this kind of relationship with, I mean, I'm not somebody who ever went to camp, like a sleepaway camp or anything like that, but this idea of you go away somewhere and you're only there for a brief period of time, and this desire, you meet somebody there and you're like, well, we could have something, knowing it's temporary, we could have something, but knowing that it has like a timeline when it ends, and there's like a romanticism to that I think is kind of what Henry and Delilah are experiencing. But again, I think the extent of it is just this kind of intimate friendship where they both care a lot about each other, and they've gone through this experience together, and now they have this bond. But again, it's at the end of that summer, it's gone, and as far as we know, they don't ever see each other again, or they never even see each other the first time. It's not one where they end up together or where there's anything beyond that kind of love over distance, but that intimate.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job at showing that intimacy can be done through distance, or how like it doesn't have to be this physical thing that is kind of giving you the intimacy that you need in a relationship. Because that's something that some people just need. It by itself is just to feel cared for, more so than the physical part of it, which is fine if that's what people want. That's totally cool. And I like how for this game it sets up this idea that like these people have to be romantically involved, or like you just. I mean, for me personally, I immediately thought these people are being romantically involved. And I would even argue that I don't know if I would say they were romantically involved, but there definitely is this like kind of intimacy in terms of their relationship in which they're supporting each other through this journey they're both having. And I love that there's like a time limit. I like that it's this idea that they both know this is going to end sooner rather than later. And what does that mean for them? And we've covered this episode, so I feel like it's okay to kind of talk more about this at this point. So if you haven't listened to the episode, please go listen to it. We would really appreciate it. Is that, I think they come to terms with that and they're okay with it, which is so cool. It's not this horrific, like, woe is me, this sucks that we have to be split apart. They've kind of gained something through this journey, and now they're moving on from it. And I think it's something that they'll never forget, but it's okay that they're separating, and that it doesn't have to be this negative thing. It can be this positive thing. They've experienced a lot together. They had this like kind of intimacy through this summer together, and now they're gonna move on. They've grown from it, and that's okay just to kind of move on, and hopefully one day they see each other. But if not, it is what it is, and that's really cool. So.
Yeah, and I really like with the last two of or at least the last two that I shared, the Outer Worlds and the Firewatch one, the characters in this are not hesitant at all about being intimate. They talk to each other and care about each other, and they share things. They're willing to let other people into their lives and let other people into parts of themselves that they might not show to others, and that kind of helps them create this really strong bond where Nate and Sully and Arthur and John, they don't have that same intimacy, and the relationships are still important and worthwhile, but they're very different than these other two.
Yeah. That's cool. It's cool that there's so many different kinds of intimate relationships. It doesn't have to be this over-sexualized idea of what it has to be, which is totally cool. I mean, we've done a really good job as a society to change that viewpoint and what that looks like in media and just kind of everyday life, which is really cool, because I feel like back in the 90s, granted I was a kid, so I really would have no idea, but if I was my age now and I mean living through the 90s, I feel like someone asked me what an intimate relationship would be, it'd be this kind of like heteronormative idea of love, and I'm glad I don't feel that way anymore. I'm glad it's just so cool how we can just see different facets of what it means to be intimate with somebody. It's very, very cool. Yeah. So I changed my next one.
Okay. That's fine.
I originally was going to do Final Fantasy X with Titus and Yuna, but that was too easy. Everybody knows about that one. What I will say, though, really fast about Final Fantasy X and X-2, what I like about those games, and spoiler alert, at the end of 10, Titus disappears and he's kind of dead and stuff like that. Actually, I don't really quite understand it, to be honest with you. But at the end of X-2, if you 100% the game like me, like I did in one winter, because I was bored out of my mind as a kid, and you 100% X-2, Titus comes back. And I just love the dynamic that Yuna really does change herself in this. And she really has changed as a person throughout these whole games, and at the end of it, still is in love with Titus, and he comes back and they're happily ever after. Really cool to me. Anyway, I got rid of that one. That was too easy. Instead, just talking about all these different forms of love and intimate relationships, I changed mine on the fly. And I put in Majora's Mask, and here's why. I talk way too much about Majora's Mask in this episode.
No such thing.
Why? Yeah, you're telling me. I totally believe that. Why I put that one down is because we were talking about so many different forms of intimate relationships that each one we're talking about really reminded me of Majora's Mask. The whole idea, now spoilers for this 21-year-old game, don't at me, you had your chance. Spoilers for this game, but the main reason why Link is on this journey is that he's trying to find Navi, his fairy that he had with him in Ocarina of Time. And essentially they grew so close, but for unknown reasons, Navi has to leave. And Link doesn't know why. And he's so heartbroken over this that he has to find her. And he goes everywhere and anywhere in hopes that he can find her again. And the love that he has for this person, for this fairy, is so strong that he's willing to journey to find her again, which leads him down this rabbit hole of this adventure of Majora's Mask, landing in Termina and kind of experiencing all these things on his adventure. But why love is so important in this story is that it's like the main driving force of everything in the story, right? So if we break down each relationship, we kind of see throughout the journey. Like for the very first one is the Deku Scrub, the unnamed Deku Scrub that you see in the very beginning of the game is kind of all twisted and morphed and dead and has a single tear in his eye, and you're like, what the heck is this thing? And meeting the butler at Deku Palace, who's asking you, hey, like, have you seen my son at all? I haven't really seen him in a while. And you're kind of like, oh crap, like I'm pretty sure I know where your son is and I don't want to be the one to tell you. And again, spoilers at the end of this game, you see the butler with his supposed child, I'm pretty sure it's the child, and he's weeping next to him. And he's weeping and he's sad because his child is dead, and the love that he shared is gone. And in this moment of happiness, when you beat this game, you beat Majora's Mask, everyone's celebrating, but this one instance of sadness really kind of jars you out of this happy moment, because you know that not everything's going to be happy at the end of a journey. You know, you really have to know this game, and if you don't know this game at all, I'm really sorry. You're probably really bored. I apologize. If you do, then hopefully you're jiving with this. But the Happy Mask salesman at the end of this game says something along the lines of, you know, with every hello comes a goodbye, and usually it's sooner rather than later, something along those lines. And I think that really speaks to a lot of things about relationships. So like, as everyone's celebrating the end of this game, right, the end of this journey, that the Dooku butler is weeping over his son. There's Darmani. There's Darmani, the Goron, who is dead and who loves his son and his people so much that he bargains with Link to come back to life. He's like, please bring me back to life. I'll do anything for these people that I care about so much. You know, the baby's crying because it misses his father, and that love that they share. And there's also Maiku the Zora, who loves Lulu the Zora and is dying on this beach because he wants to save her eggs because they're fish people. It's weird, I know, but that's what, it's just fish people. Who cares? And he's dying on this beach, and he loves her so much that he's willing to do whatever he can to help her. And so my main point in all this is that we see all these different forms of love in all these relationships, and what that kind of represents for each person, whether it's a good ending or a bad ending. We even see it for Anju and Kafei, I guess is how you pronounce the characters in the game. How, one has been turned into a child, one is an adult, and the child is actively trying to avoid her because he doesn't know how to go back to her, given that he's now a child again. But that love that he has for her, eventually they do come back together again. And it's just so many cool, fun ways to see these dynamics of love, especially in a Zelda game. I feel like Ocarina of Time is kind of missing that aspect of it, and it's just so interesting how, and again, you can even say this for the Skull Kid in the game. His love for the four giants led him down this evil path of finding Majora's Mask and being this huge jerk. And it's just how, love can make you do amazing things, and love can make you do awful, horrific, crash the moon down into the world things. And how interesting that is. I mean, the main theme that I get personally from this game, and I think that is you're supposed to kind of learn from this game, is that regardless of where you are with someone, you're always going to be their friend. You can always be their friend. Like, even though Navi's gone, she and Link will always be close. They'll always be friends. Even when Link befriends the Skull Kid at the end of the game, and the Skull Kid's like, let's go play. And the Happy Master's like, Link, you need to go. Like, even with every hello comes a goodbye. You have to go. And the Skull Kid understands that. He's like, we'll always be friends, and that's kind of like this idea that love kind of conquers all, that regardless of where you are, as long as you care for this person, then that will continue through. And that's what shows. I think we all have that kind of friendship where, like, you cannot talk for a long time, then you meet together and it's just like old times again. Like, you just pick up right where you left off. It's not weird anymore. And and that's kind of what I get from this. So yeah. Ryan, I think it's last game. Is this the last game that we're going to
Yeah, last
okay.
one.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And what is your last game? It's a good one. I like this
Yeah,
one.
my last game is Hades. Talking about Zagreus and Nyx. I was trying to think of, in all of these different relationships that we were covering and that we've seen in this media, is kind of a parental relationship. And we see these a lot in games, but I wanted one that wasn't, like, full of tragedy and trauma. And there is still some there, but not between Nyx and Zagreus. Nyx cares so much for Zagreus, and is willing to just put herself in difficult situations or do whatever she needs to because she cares so much about him. And she recognizes that she's not his birth mother, but she's raised him, and she will do anything for him, just like she's done for her other children. She's willing to kind of bend the rules and put herself in harm's way and put Zagreus on this path. Eventually, he finds something that's satisfying, or something that he was looking for, and this relationship is so meaningful. And within the first few sentences, the first conversation between Nyx and Zagreus, that they both care for each other so much. And over the course of the game, Zagreus helps Nyx, repair other relationships in her life. And there's this really meaningful way that I think is interesting, both because she is not his birth mother, but she has still raised him, and she is still her parent and cares for him. And Zagreus is lucky enough to have multiple of these individuals in his life, and all of them are as meaningful. There's not an evil mom and a good mom out there somewhere, right? They are all good, and they're all meaningful, and they all have something to give him in his life. And this idea that even though they're this big, strange, dysfunctional family in some ways, especially those who live in the underworld, are so close and care so much about each other, that it makes it really meaningful.
Yeah, and big spoilers right now. If you don't mind if I talk.
No, please go for it.
We learn the dynamics in which Nyx, or the circumstances in which Nyx, like, so Zagreus is essentially stillborn, and that's why his mom, Persephone, leaves, right? And then distressed, like, I can't handle this kind of thing. But Nyx uses all of her power and does it for she really like puts all her effort in for a significant amount of time. I can't remember exactly how long, to bring him back, and then she raises him as her own, and but is not too proud to encourage him to find his birth mother. And and again, big spoilers, when his mom comes back, when Persephone comes back, it's not this weird like, I'm his mom, you're not thing. They both recognize that they are this motherly figure towards Zagreus, and there's no competition there. It's just love, which is really cool. I'm glad that there was this creepy weird dynamic. They actually really, both Persephone and Nyx, really care about each other, and they're really close friends, and they both love Zagreus and they care about him as a motherly figure, and I think that's super cool. I love that they didn't make it this weird thing that it would become a competition, because that just doesn't seem like that's in their character, and I'm glad that they didn't go through that. So it's really cool. It's such a good game.
It sometimes feels like the most fantastical parts of these games are just how wonderful all of these characters are, how kind and loving they are in such this really meaningful way. Yeah,
it's crazy. Even with Nyx and her, I guess, parental figure, whose name I can't remember. It's like the
Chaos or whatever.
Chaos. Yes. Is it Chaos? Yeah.
Primordial
right.
Chaos.
Even they have an estranged relationship that kind of grows and becomes closer, and it's not like a typical relationship at all. They're still very kind of like, it's this kind of weird dynamic. They have kind of differing personalities, even though I would say that their personalities are very unique in their own. So these two very unique personalities coming back together, but you kind of hear through their dialogue and as they talk to you that they're trying their best to build this relationship again, and that's just so cool to hear. Like, there doesn't have to be this kind of crazy drama behind it. It's just like, we've kind of fell off and now we're coming back together and we're trying. You even see that with Zagreus and Hades, and how Hades struggles as a parental figure. He really struggles with his personality and being a father. Again, it grows and you see him trying to be better, and that's such a cool dynamic. But
yeah, so much of what makes Hades such an incredible game, the gameplay is wonderful, is that the relationships are the story, right? There is no larger arc other than just trying to repair and bring people back together and reform those relationships, and it just such a great job of doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It does a fantastic job at building relationships. I would say that this game, this roguelike game, is like on par, if not better than AAA games that do relationships really well. I would say it may even be better. So it's really, it's so good. Play Hades. We keep talking about it so much. Play Hades. If you haven't played Hades, just play Hades. You'll like it. You'll just like it. So for my last game, I have decided to go with God of War, and I think this one's really special because we never actually see. I'm focusing on the relationship between Kratos and again, spoilers for the game. If you haven't played God of War, it's relatively the newest one, 2018 one. Please don't listen to this. Play the game for yourself first. It's a fantastic game. But I am focusing on the relationship between Kratos and Faye, his wife, his second wife, and the dynamic in which their relationship exists in the game. And what's interesting about this dynamic is that actually Faye has already passed on. She is dead in the game, the very beginning of the game. But what I love about this relationship is that it turned Kratos from this huge a-hole into this redeemable person, this person who actually wants to be better, who is trying to control the rage that he has so desperately been unable to control his whole life, I think. And we see it in the very beginning of the game when he's chopping down the tree with seemingly Faye's handprint on it, and he puts his hand on it and he's kind of like taking that moment to reflect and how deep and personal it is for someone who before couldn't even control themselves and killed so many people in the past. So I just found it super interesting that Kratos and Faye's relationship was so deep and meaningful and intimate that it was able to change him into a better person, and actually motivate him to want to be a better person, not only for her, but also their child, Atreus. So I found that just to be super interesting. And the fact that she's not even present in the game, the only image we ever see of her is this depiction of her on a carving on the wall. And so, but even so, her importance is so integral to Kratos's wanting to be better. I think that's what really shows the how love and intimacy can make someone better. And I would argue that maybe don't wait for that to come to you to try to be a better person. Actively try to be a better person before that. Don't hope that someone's going to change you for the better. Want to change yourself first. But at the same time, relationships can make people better by being open to that change, which somehow Kratos was. So I just found it super interesting that not only did Kratos and Faye have a seemingly good relationship, but that relationship kind of carries on through Kratos and Atreus' relationship, and Kratos wanting to be better for his son, for Faye. So Ryan, you played God of War. Did you find that interesting between Kratos and his wife?
Yeah, of course. I think it's such a meaningful relationship, and it seemed like he really wanted to make that change because of their relationship, whatever it was. Again, there's a lot left unsaid. We don't get to see what their relationship is like together. We're just kind of experiencing the aftermath of that relationship and who Kratos is because of that relationship. But yeah, I think it's really powerful. And I think with all of these games, I never realized how important these relationships were to the experience and to every single one of these stories, which I think is really interesting.
Just the idea that it doesn't have to be this back and forth between the couples for it to be this meaningful and deep relationship. It can be that one person doesn't have that person anymore, doesn't have their significant other anymore, and how that has a huge impact on themselves and the motivations they have throughout a story. I think is very, I would say oftentimes not oftentimes, but I think it can be even more meaningful. Whereas if comparatively to a Nate and Elena story, I feel like is very meaningful, but I feel that the Kratos and Faye story is more meaningful to me personally. So, but yeah, those are the games that we have picked, and hopefully you guys are jiving with that. There's so many. There really is a whole lot, and I kind of based on the ones I've played, but I'm sure I think someone's probably screaming at their speakers like, why not Catherine? Catherine's a perfect example, and I just haven't played Catherine. I think it'd be it's fun. I would like to play one day, and I'm sure it would be a fantastic. But there's always next February.
It's true.
So yeah, Storygoers, if you have any thoughts, feelings, and or perspectives, please let us know. Comment on our posts, DM us, or email us to talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All of the E's are 3s. We will happily read those perspectives in the next episode. And before we go, we will break down our calendar for the month of February. Ryan, you want to start us off?
We have a lot of exciting things coming in February. The first thing you're listening to for the month of February is obviously this DLC episode. So February is going to be one where we're not going to have a guest for February. That February guest is going to be in March. So you might get 2 guests in March. You might just get 1 guest in March. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so the first thing you'll be hearing in February is this DLC.
Yeah, so after the DLC episode, we are going to be releasing a special episode that we did for our friends at the First Encounter podcast. We made an episode for them in January, and we were so happy with it. We really wanted to release it for ourselves as well. And that game is Oddworld, and that will be coming out on February 8th. And we really had a good time with it. It's a game that neither of us had ever experienced or played or knew anything about, as you'll hear in the episode. But it was like a really fun read just between the two of us. We had a good time. It's a very special script that we wrote for it, and it was kind of just a different take on it. And I was really, really, really proud of it. So. And then on February 15th, we are having another Bedtime Stories. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the end of Mario 64. We took a new approach without adding any sound effects, because I was really kind of thinking about it, and I can imagine how in trying to sleep, maybe there's a sound effect or two that might come through that might wake you up, and I don't want that. I want this to be a relaxing thing, so we got rid of all those sound effects. I think we both liked it more. So we're going to go with that, but any kind of input on that matter would be very much appreciated. So yes, on February 15th, we are releasing Bedtime Stories for Limbo. It'll be one-parter. It's 1 episode on Limbo. A lot of artistic liberties, I think, to kind of explain what's going on, but I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be good.
Excited for that too.
What's cool about Bedtime Stories is that it's mostly, they're really good for stories without games without stories. So we kind of get to kind of the artistic liberty to kind of describe it on our own from our perspective and see, make a story out of that to the best of it we can. And I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So
yeah,
we'll see about that. But Yeah. So on the 22nd, Ryan, you want to talk about
Yeah,
what we might do there?
so on the 22nd will be kind of a regular episode. It's kind of our traditional episode, but we're going to, again, put a poll up. So we'll put the poll up probably soon, probably next week. But it'll be either the original Ratchet and Clank or the original Fallout, like old 1990s Fallout, or the original Ratchet and Clank, which I think came out in the 2000s, in the mid to early 2000s, which were both, so they're very different experiences, very different games. So yeah, you'll get to vote on those on our social media, so check out on Twitter and Instagram for that, and make your voice be heard. If you want to hear one, we'll, I'm sure, eventually do both of them someday, but if you're more excited for one than the other, please let us know, so we can do that. So yeah, that'll be on the 22nd, will be Fallout. This is a weird one, because February is such a short month, and then we'll have five things in March, so that's how it goes. But
yeah, so that is our schedule. We'll go through it one more time really fast. So DLC comes out on the 1st, which you're listening to now, and Oddworld comes out on the 8th of February. Bedtime Stories Limbo will come out 15th, and then our normal episode, which is either Fallout, the original Fallout, or Ratchet and Clank, will come out on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Please make sure to vote on that if you have a preference. We would happily like your input. It makes it more fun when people actually want. when we know people want to listen to it, makes it more fun too. We can all get together and synchronize on that. So yeah, that is our month looking forward, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Yeah, and we will see you in the next one.
bye.
Bye.